Call to order the Rock-Koshkonong Lake District Board of Commissioners meeting to order for September the 17th, 2020. First item is confirmation of meetings public notice. I sent it out to the towns, received confirmation from most. Approval of the agenda.
I approve the agenda. Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second it.
Thank you. I have no changes. All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a no? Carried. Approval of the draft August 20, 2020 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve them.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Bill. Any questions, corrections, concerns on the meeting minutes?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Your comment regarding the $2,500 pledge by the Rock-Koshkonong Wetland Association. If you could read what I put in there and see if that is correct, is the reporting was not great out there on the minutes, so I just want to make sure that it's just under public comment and it's on the second page of it.
The money was for the boom system that they're going to direct the large debris over the dam and get to that part of the project.
So I would like to change that if possible.
Okay, absolutely.
Yep.
Any other corrections, concerns? With that, we have a motion and a second to approve the amended August 20, 2020 meeting minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Public participation on the agenda items. On the agenda items, public participation. Treasurer's report. Mark?
Okay. Dam fund CD1 has 238,471.56. That matures 2/19 of 21. Dam fund money market has 475.46.57. Total dam fund 708.18.13, and 700,000 of that is allocated for the dam project. Lake improvement money market is 107.153.63. 100,000 of that is allocated for boat landings, public boat landings. The general fund 813 balance was 90,862.23. We paid Jeff Bartz $200 for the sound system for the annual meeting. C&M printing $277.04 for the annual meeting packets. The reporter $32.40 for the public notice. Alan had some expenses of $212.97 for the annual meeting. Another C&M printing for the annual meeting $55.70. A refund to the town of Sumner for $1,563.95, which was approved a couple meetings ago for a check that was cashed prior to this board. And then Kim for dam operations for August, $1,200. Two deposits of $140.40 and $330. For an adjusted balance of $87,790.57. Bills to be paid. John Heller for the spring buoy replacement. For some reason that got lost in the mess. $425, and Summit Accounting $2,100. And that would leave us with a balance of $88,337.23.
Okay, Mark, this was Johnny Heller's invoice. For some reason, I put it in my inbox and failed to forward that to you, but that's the actual amount. So if you could, you sent them 4 1/4.
Yeah, so the amount, he repaired some buoys and such, and the actual amount is $691
Yeah.
that we'll be approving, so.
Okay. Questions on the bills? If we could get a motion to approve bills and invoices, please.
I'll make a motion to approve paying bills and invoices.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to pay the bills and approve the treasurer's report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Indian Ford Dam report, water control project. Got a note from Jeff Anderson. I'm assuming, I got this a week ago, and he was assuming that he missed a meeting, but anyway, I'm expecting either tomorrow or the first part of next week to hear from Mead and Hunt's Cultural Resources Department Manager. They're going to do a historic review of the powerhouse at the dam to gauge its historic significance. Do what? Yeah, maybe it's stopped. They were, as I said, they were review of the Cultural Resources Department Manager will review the historic significance of the powerhouse, which may or may not have a.
Tell them to mute their phone. Might have to tell them to mute.
Whoever's on the line.
Hello?
Hi, could you mute your phone, please?
I did just set that noise to stop, but let's see if I can figure out how do I do that? I did just get that noise to stop. It shouldn't happen again.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Okay.
Let me see what else. They will be likely starting a review of that cultural resource and making a visit to the dam sometime before the end of September. They're just gearing up to renew progress on the final design, which is expected, so we can have that in front of DNR for their design approval, and then anticipate starting the bidding process sometime in October. That's about all I have on the water control. Dam maintenance, Kim has been keeping the water levels at the desired level, I'm assuming. We will be taking my large air compressor down there and blowing those trash racks out, which helps considerably. Questions on the Indian Ford Dam report? Okay, lake management, Mike was going to report on the buoy and the marker status, but obviously he isn't here. Mark, I put down the USGS flood forecast service at the end of the drought. We had a substantial amount of rain upstream, and everybody is expecting the lake to rise significantly. Are we signed up for that service yet?
We've asked for it. They came back with a few questions, and that's where it is.
Okay.
So it's not active yet, but they have all the tools. It's just a matter of getting it done, so.
Well, I think we have until spring, but certainly we should make sure that that's there.
I'll check back with them.
Okay, thank you. Landings on Lake access. Jim, you want to, I can kind of chime in, but there's anything on landings, anything new to report?
Nothing new other than we had a meeting with Albion, and that'll be the next topic there.
Yep.
So, talk with Albion and Bruce, the senior project manager of MSA on the Bingham Road landing. We met with them, was it a few weeks ago, and I think Bob Bensky has information on that too.
Okay. Bob, did you want to speak to that now, or?
Sure. The town of Albion sent a letter to the Lake District asking them for sponsorship on the rebuilding of the landing, and also the engineering involved, and the engineers' first duty would be to write for a grant request. The purchase of the land, Albion has no problem owning the land. We just don't have funds to purchase the land. But we've been told by Dane County Parks Commissioner Darren Marsh that Dane County has funds available. They would pay for half of the land, and the state stewardship program would pay for the other half. So I think the first step would be to write the offer and submit the appraisal that has been done and paid for. The verbal agreement with Oaklawn Academy, the price was they would sell the 2 acres for appraised value. We have that. And so if we would move forward on that, and then according to the engineer, there's nothing to stop them from starting the grant process for the cost of the land.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I had told the meeting that I would contact our attorney, and Danielle Thompson had responded to me, I believe it was yesterday, and I called her this morning and wanted to clarify some points that I had brought up, and she had answered, but at this time she hasn't called me. I'll kind of go over what I asked the attorney. At our August 22nd, 2020 RKLD meeting, the Board of Commissioners voted unanimously to address a policy for the Lake District's involvement in the purchase of real estate, construction, placement, and management of landings and other lake access improvements. Those approved policies are RKLD funding is to be used on public landings and public access improvements only. RKLD will not own the finished landing or access improvement. Local governments or organizations will request RKLD's sponsorship of the landing or access improvement to include but not limited to partial funding, grant applications, permitting, and other related actions. RKLD will not be responsible for maintenance of landings or access points. There was $100,000 approved at the 2020 annual meeting of the electors for landing and lake access. The town of Albion has officially requested the sponsorship of RKLD for a landing at Bingham Road. The sponsorship would involve land purchase, engineering, grant application, and constructions. There are several questions related to the request I went on to ask Danielle. The town of Albion has agreed to take ownership of the landing upon completion. What would be the best process to complete that transaction? Another question, I am assuming RKLD would apply for grants available to ensure the monies from grants are returned to RKLD. Another question, MSA has offered a proposal for engineering, some grant application, and other design services. That proposal is for $34,600. I am also assuming that proposal would need to be bid with some bid specs created. Another question, is this a workable process for addressing the wishes of the Lake District electors? Then I went on to say it'd be easier to talk about this and maybe a face-to-face or at least a phone conference would be in order going forward. Her response, again, received yesterday. Generally, your landing policy is workable. It is a bit complicated because a vote by the electors is required to authorize the district to buy or sell property. Is there a reason the town of Albion doesn't want to take ownership of the property initially? What type of grants are you considering? The grant program may dictate who should own the property initially and apply for the grant funds. The district will want to memorialize the agreement with the town of Albion in a binding agreement or MOU. Assuming that the agreement is signed regarding the expectations of both parties, I would not be concerned with either party being the grant applicant. And that's where we sit. So I left the agenda item pretty open.
In answer, Al, to the one item you mentioned, you expected that the engineer would have a design and handle the bids, and they will. I asked that question this afternoon when I talked to Bruce, and he said, well, yeah, that's part of the package.
Okay.
So I think, though, before you come into an agreement with MSA, you should have them spell out step by step each and everything they're going to do.
I'm not sure, and this is one of the questions I have jotted down to ask Danielle is I'm not sure that we want to work with MSA. We may hand you the 34.6 and you work with them.
I think that's kind of what we discussed at that meeting was it's all handled through you guys, and we would sponsor the 34.6 for now and then see where it goes from there, what more is needed. But I think at the meeting we had discussed that we wouldn't be making the decisions or anything. We would give you the 34,006, expecting that if grants and everything come through, that money would come back in the end how we had talked before. And
one of the conditions that I didn't bring up at the meeting at Porter or at Albion Hall, proposals right out of the minutes. Proposal would require approval by the Rock County Lake District.
Yeah.
And there's several years ago, the district sponsored wetland protection projects, and basically the owners had to front the money, but the owners couldn't get the permit, couldn't apply for the grant because they weren't a public entity. Mm-hmm. So that's what a sponsorship is. A sponsorship isn't necessarily the payee. They're just a government entity sponsoring it. So if you're asking for a sponsorship, you're basically asking us to help out with a grant application and whatever on behalf of the town of Albion. So who would be the proper owner? And I think that's what we really need to determine, because we're saying that indirectly, and the we is the Lake District and the town of Albion, but the owner is the town of Albion.
Well, we own it now.
Part of it.
Part of it.
Yeah, the strip, but not the parking area or whatever. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And we have no problem owning the parking area either.
So there's two things on the table. The first thing is the acquisition of additional land. Otherwise, you don't have a project.
And that's what one of them is here, that he wrote in, wants help writing up the offer.
Right. So we have $100,000 available. If we need to go any deeper than that, then that requires a lot of...
Yep, but we're not looking at putting money towards the purchase of land
No.
Okay.
at all. The 34,000.
The offer is going to be contingent on receiving grant money to cover it. 100%.
But you have to determine who's going to pay the bridge, the amount of money it costs to do the project prior, because you don't get a grant award until you're done with the project. 100%.
Darren from Dane County Parks has already agreed to purchase the property, even at full if they have to.
But there's another $300,000 or whatever that number is to fully stripe the parking lot.
Yep.
Everything's done, culverts are in, whatever.
Yep.
Now, that estimate was done by your hydrologist, not by MSA.
Well, it's exceeding our 100,000 is all I'm saying, because if we're...
Well, yeah, if it comes more than that, we're going to have to get approval for that from the annual
Go back to
meeting,
the people for that.
Yeah.
Which could
The
in...
time factor is, you're not going to see anything done until probably this time next year.
Right, and
So you'll have another annual meeting if you need additional approvals or whatever.
MSA doesn't seem to think we need any additional money, that they needed any additional money than $34,600
well, you
right now.
can design it, but you can't construct it. And where I'm going with this is the district is basically 25% or 10% of a tax base of one of our townships. And we're borrowing $1.5 million for the dam. And our normal revenue is $160,000. If that could impact our borrowing levels and also our interest levels, if we go back to the bank and say, hey, we want to borrow another $300,000, even if it's for 2 weeks. So I don't know that you can agree to anything. You can't agree to funding anything or even ask the taxpayers to until you're fully funded for the dam project and all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Like, we've already made that commitment to the taxpayers, so this could have an impact on that commitment we've made if we can't borrow the money under the 3.25%. So we can't commit to spending more than we have at this point.
And we're not. We're not committing to spend any more than what we're not committing to spending any more. I mean, we have 100,000 allocated right now. We're looking at spending 34,000 to get the grants and that. We're not looking at spending any more, and you're not requesting any more money.
The town of Albion is willing to take ownership upon completion. And we're willing to take it through the land acquisition and design process. Somebody has to fund the construction before the grant award. Which would, if the district did that, it would require us to borrow more money. And that's going to take time, and it may not even be possible because we are very small in terms of revenue.
And it takes...
I think you're catching our drift here. We're not asking you to pay for anything. We are going to proceed as we receive grants. If we get a grant for $50,000, we'll do that much work.
Mark is saying that once we start down that road, it's very difficult to turn back. So in other words, if we pay $34,600 for the design, we buy the land, that's a commitment. That's a commitment by the town of Albion and RKLD. And I think that's what Mark is saying, is that,
Well, and I'm also saying, and you're going to see it with the dam project, you can get a grant award, but you don't get the money
correct.
until everything is done. And people don't do the work without getting paid. So somebody has to pay, it's a bridge, right? You have to fund the project fully, and then you get your grant money back, and at the end of the day, it didn't cost you anything. But you still have to have the money to do the project. You can't, like you go to the car lot and buy a car and you sell it for the same thing you paid for it 2 years later, you still got to buy the car, right? Like so it isn't, that's all I'm worried about. I'm worried about us, the district, saying, yes, because sponsoring it and paying for it is two different things. Because basically we'll own it temporarily.
Does anybody have a copy of MSA's, that worksheet?
Yeah, right here.
Mark, do you have a copy of that worksheet, Mark?
Here,
Of MSA's, what their design, I don't know if that was shared with everybody or not. The way I understood that meeting,
Yeah.
you guys correct me if I'm wrong, all we agreed to is MSA had a worksheet broke out of what their plan was to go forward. And that plan that they designed was $34,000, $34,600, something like that.
Yep.
That's all. And I think at that kind of the meeting, we kind of said, if that's all we're doing, we're not owning the land, we're not buying, the land or anything else. I think you asked for us to fill out the offer the purchase.
yeah,
I think that was the only other thing that wasn't in it. But MSA's bill to get this thing going and off the ground was $34,000.
well,
Am I understanding that right?
they do all the grant applications.
Right.
They do the design work, they do the bidding for construction. That's all part of their deal.
So really with that then said, the Lake District is into this for $34,000 for design.
if the Lake District is going to work with MSA, we can't just hand MSA $34,000, it has to be bid. But if the Lake District contributes $34,600 to the town of Albion, you said that MSA is your engineer, your in-house engineer? That may be different, that's one of the questions I intend to ask Danielle when she calls. So there's
Because there's other engineering firms. Batterman attended one of your meetings.
Correct.
And pretty much outlined the same thing.
Yeah. What I'm saying is RKLD's requirement for that bidding process, if we're going to work directly with MSA or any other engineering firm, we would probably have to get bid specs or some document for everybody to bid on so it's consistent. But just keep that in mind.
But also then to Mark's point, if you put RKLD on these contracts, is that putting us, are we putting ourselves in liability of having to complete this if something falls short? That's my fear. And I think that's maybe
I don't
what
think
Mark
we should.
is saying.
Well, according to what we approved before, we're sponsoring or assisting with getting it, but we shouldn't be on the contracts. We're assisting Albion. Albion's on the contracts, not us. We're just assisting them, whether it's helping with permits or that, but it's in Albion's name, not RKLD's.
RKLD is not on
Nope.
MSA's contract or
Nope.
anything else, and that's all basically falling back on Albion.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mark, on the project you just spoke of, you're saying the private individuals didn't have the ability to apply for grants,
Right,
but Albion does in this case, correct?
right.
Yeah, because they're a government entity.
We wouldn't have to be a signature of that grant application.
No, no.
We would just be we'd want a contract with the town of Albion that grants would be reimbursed RKLD for further lake access projects, maybe even that one.
Yeah, and I think the point here is we're setting precedents for what we do in the future, and we want to improve not only Bingham Road landing, but a whole bunch of other landings that fall in a whole bunch of other townships. So if we get it right this time, you know, we have a roadmap. So it's not to be difficult or challenging, it's just that we can't own every landing on Lake Koshkonong, even if it's temporarily. We're puny. We don't have a huge tax base, and like the dam project is a monster. In terms of our revenue, it's huge. You know, when you look at our annual revenue of $160,000, we're doing a $2.25 million project. That's big.
You don't have any landings.
No, but if we don't do it right, we could own it temporarily, and then the next township would expect us to do the same thing, which basically is all the work all the way through, and here's your landing, and as well as financing it, which we don't have the financial horsepower to do that, where if we can collaborate with the townships and use their financial horsepower, so to speak, then we can improve a whole lot more landings. Then the district doesn't have a lot of money, and
neither does the township.
well, and that point's been brought up not only by the public but by every government.
That's why, okay, I still think you're missing the whole big picture. 2 engineering firms just told us that you could get the land, build the landing, and after all the grants have been paid, you would pay for less than 10% of the whole thing.
I get that part, but you have to fund it on the way through.
I know what you're saying. The contractor, if he's got $35,000 coming, you got to get out of the bank and get him a check for $35,000. Pay interest on that until the grant comes and pays it off, that's change. But all I'm asking is to get started, you're not risking any money to get the land purchased. That's totally on a grant. And if they don't get the grant, we don't get the land. And if we get the land and then the landing doesn't proceed right away, who cares?
Can you apply
got
for
the land?
Can you apply for a grant if you don't own it? That's what Mark was saying. If you don't own it, they won't apply for a grant.
Yeah, according to Dane County, then yeah, you apply for the grant and
Dane County was offering to pay 50%.
50%.
Yeah, which is, so then, from what I understand, when Jim Bauer was running point on it, he wanted to write an offer to purchase with that as a contingency, I think, or there was some contingencies in there, which there would be nothing wrong with buying the land, but to Al's point, we have to get taxpayer approval to purchase.
Well, we don't
something.
want to buy the land, and we don't plan on buying the land.
Let's back out of this a minute. What Bob is saying, let's take the land, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but you just said you take the land right out of the formula.
Yeah.
That's you and Dane County.
Yeah.
So
We're not doing
that
nothing.
discussion's closed.
Other than the land part, our lawyer was going to help him write the purchase offer. We're not, nothing else with the land.
So that's out of the whole picture.
But what I understood was Albion doesn't have the money for the other half of the land.
But that's between Dane County and Albion Township then.
The agency is 2 grants, half from Dane County, the other half from the stewardship program. If we don't get both grants, the deal's away.
So you can apply for it if you don't own it.
Yes. According to MSA,
According
yes.
to the engineer, and according to Darren Mark from Dane County,
Yeah.
naturally you don't own it, you're trying to buy it. You will own it, and we will own it, and we will not probably do any of the development until we get a grant that'll cover that. And there are grants out there that'll do that, build a parking lot, pave it and everything. but it's just a series of grants you have to go through. And like I said, 2 engineering firms have told us you can get 95% of the total cost, all of your construction, and the only thing you get stuck with is a little bit of engineering. So we really don't need your $100,000. All you need is your sponsorship to back the grant.
So that's what confused me, because the town of Albion is requesting that the RKLD sponsor the construction of the Bingham Road landing, boat landing, including grant application, engineering, and construction. That's what you asked for.
Yep.
So now you're saying you don't need us except for the...
Well, if we don't get the grants, we're not going to move forward. If the money's not there, no one can't spend it.
That's what confused me, is because this request is asking us to sponsor the entire thing, including the financing? I'm just asking. I'm not trying to be difficult.
I guess I'd rather the engineer tell you how this works. Because they've done a lot of it.
So the meeting that was, what was talked about was giving the town of Albion the money for the engineering.
So the meeting was spelling out what RKLD, the steps that we developed that are in the minutes, the 5 steps.
Pass that down.
He has one.
Does Mark, you have this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, from Ellis, okay.
And
That's what was discussed.
I mean, I get the big picture, but I don't understand what our intent is. We approved at the last meeting to assist financially. But this request is to basically take ownership of it temporarily.
No, we're not taking ownership of any of it.
So are
Well,
we...
some of the financial guarantees are going to have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
For those grants. The grant application is going to ask probably for...
The sponsorship can be the RKLD, and on behalf of the town of Albion is asking for the grant, but the town of Albion can do the same thing we can as a government. So it doesn't, there's no benefit there if we're not going to participate at a higher level, which is what the request, sponsorship request is a little more dynamic than what is being presented. That's what I'm trying to get at, is there's more to it, and if you sign up as a joint venture, you'll finish as a joint venture, and then the town of Albion owns it at the end of the day. Like, it's not, that's the horsepower we lack in terms of money and resources. We've been talking about the dam project, or the landing project, for 2 years. There's been money allocated for it, and we haven't hardly spent any, so it's kind of, we just need to either stick to what was decided the last meeting, or
And one of those points that was approved was the proposals would require approval of our RKLD board. So whatever you gentlemen are willing to move forward with this evening, would be applicable with a motion or some direction for asking questions of Danielle.
I think I'd feel real comfortable if Danielle Thompson, the attorney, would answer a few of these questions on what our liability would be if we go forward with this, with the $34,000. we on the hook for anything other than just sponsoring $34,000? Are we on the hook for, are we responsible for grant money before the grants money comes in?
Oh, absolutely. To apply for a grant, you have to.
But then to Mark's point,
right.
If MSA comes back and says this is going to cost X amount of dollars, and it's above the 100,000 that the people have already approved, how can you do that? Because then you're going to have to go back, wait for, like Bob said, another year, annual meeting, and you're going to have to get approval from those people to spend another 100, another 200, or whatever it is to cost, to carry it over. That's the way I understand that.
I think we'd be okay committing the 34.8 or whatever, 34.6, whatever that number is, contingent on the land purchase, because we're going to pay the engineer to get started on the grant application process and all that stuff, and then if they don't get the grants to buy the land, there's no land to do the project on.
Oh, no.
No, you
There's
could,
room for the landing without this land. This land is only for parking. The breakwaters and the land, we've got 66-foot right-of-way going into the lake.
You just stated that the whole project is contingent on the recipient of the recipients receiving the grants. Is that your point?
Yeah, I think a major cost is the land acquisition in the parking lot for this landing. It's probably most of it.
I don't follow.
Here again, you're not putting up any money for the purchase of land.
No, but you can't define your grant application until you have the land, which means, are we going to build a parking lot? Aren't we going to build a parking lot? Are we going to, what's the scale of the project? They're not going to give you a grant if they say you might build a 2-acre parking lot if we get the land. They're going to say you have to have the land, and you have to be the proper owner, and you have to, you're dealing with a lot of government agencies, and everything has to be in line and perfect in order for those applications to be accepted and approved.
The way I understood it from the engineer, that parking lot is really not part of the boat landing.
It's not part of the engineer's design project?
Well, he would put it in the design,
yes.
but it doesn't mean you have to do anything with it.
Design the
You wouldn't have
parking
to
lot is-
develop it. If you went and rebuilt the landing, say that cost you, well, shouldn't cost you anything if you're going to pay the engineer to get the grants. But anyway, say you got the boat landing all constructed and you didn't have any parking yet, but you had the land.
Here's the thing, is the 2-year process that it took to get here is the taxpayers wanted boat landings, they want improved boat landings, they want parking for their trucks and trailers. So if you have a nice boat landing constructed and you don't have anywhere to park your truck and trailer, it's not very valuable. It doesn't satisfy what the taxpayers approved and what they want. So it will take longer, but it will be a better outcome if we do it, if we allocate, if we approve an allocation based on the contingency that the land is acquired. Because then that's what the whole deal is. It's like, that's...
I would see no problem with that. Because the first thing you need to do is get the land.
Yeah.
And there again, you're not committing anything for that.
No, not until you get the land.
Yeah, but you're going to need the 34,006 for MSA to
Well, that's everything.
Yeah,
And it all.
they won't do anything until the land is acquired, is
Oh,
what
yeah,
what
they'll-
most of them-
He's
Well,
good.
they'll write the grant
He's writing the
application
grants,
for the-
their grant application
land.
for the land and everything.
Then, then that needs to be broke out. If you want to, phase it, they need to break that out in their proposal, and then we can approve that much. We can phase the,
I think that question was asked to MSA, was it not, that he doesn't need the 34,000
No, he
all up
doesn't
front?
need all up
He
front.
just needs X amount to begin, like you say, Mark,
Yeah.
but I'm just going to pull a number out of my behind. He may need $4,000 to get this thing started off the ground, and then he'll come back and ask for a little more, and come back and ask for a little more.
He said 8 to 10.
Yeah, but we need to, I think what it is we need as a board to commit to something. If, that's all at this point. Unless I missed
mean,
something at that meeting.
And that's true. So, we need probably a motion, whether we want to move forward with helping Albion write the offer to purchase the property to see if we could get that far. And then,
Grant application.
and the grant applications, we need a number from MSA to say what what it's going to cost to get that grant application started just for the land.
Yeah,
I think that's that number is important, short-term, but as a commitment, you'd want to commit to 34.6.
Yeah, you want to eventually commit to the 34.6 to get it all written and all the grants going. I mean, that number is important now, but in the end, you're going to probably want to commit to the 34.6 so he can keep going with the grants, because he's got dates of when grants are due, so he would be starting immediately to even get all the other grants going. We've already missed the September one, so that will have to, was it every 6 months that one?
6 months.
Every 6 months that one gets up. So, I mean, you're technically going to want to commit to the 34.6 so he can, even as the purchase of the property is coming along, he could get these other grants going because he's running behind on these other grants. Is pretty much what he talked about.
Right, but would you be smarter to have two motions? One to fund the offer the purchase,
Write the offer.
or write the offer to
Yeah, you
purchase.
want two motions.
So
One to write
you
the
do one
offers,
for the offer to
purchase,
purchase,
and then,
but then you spell out a little more, I think, and maybe I'd even feel more comfortable if you waited on the second one until Al got information back from the attorney.
well, it doesn't make sense to make a motion on the first one because they're going to need money to go for the grants anyway. So either we don't do either one.
But you may not even know that they're going to accept the offer.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing is.
I mean, that's the, where that whole thing could stop right there.
Bruce said that you don't necessarily have to have the land to apply for the reconstruction of the landing and like the breakwaters and such. But all of the grants are like 5 and 6 months out. So you got to get the applications in.
Yep.
That's what your engineer.
Well, and to your point, yes, if we get the offer written to contingent on them approving the offer, they may not want to sell it now, who knows?
But they may want more money, or they may,
The other thing,
who knows what they were going to want.
well, they don't even know what the appraisal is yet, but
I'm just trying to slow it down.
I got 4 copies in my truck.
yeah,
You had it appraised?
We did, yes.
What
62
was the appraisal?
Huh?
What was the appraisal?
62.9.
And they don't know that number?
They don't know that number.
But they did say that they would sell, at one time they said they would sell at appraised value.
At appraised value.
And Darren Marsh from Dane County Park said, you better get it, that's a deal. Well, I saw what Dane County paid for some land, and at that price, it is a deal.
One other thing, that I think would be wise to put a contingent on this, on either motion, is an MOU signed by RKLD and Town of Albion. And we can put that on the October agenda, that MOU, get it drafted.
And then, just a last comment, and then I'll be quiet. If you don't define the amount in the contingency on the land purchase, you can go all the way through that $34,000 and not do anything.
Not have anything accomplished.
And the only people that are going to lose $34,000 is the Lake District.
It's like, yeah, they've done that in the past.
So I just,
Times.
that's my only concern. I just want to make sure that the taxpayers' money is going towards something that's going to be viable and real at the end of the day. You know, not we've spent millions of dollars on conceptual stuff over the years, and it's just been a tremendous waste.
So your wish for a contingency is to have the land purchased at appraised value?
Yes, and Bob's got the contingencies in there for the grants. So you just, we can't fund all the grant applications because it's, we can at the end of the day, but initially we can only fund what's real, which is the land purchase agreement and the land purchase based on Bob's contingencies and the acquisition of that land. And then we can look at paying for
Spending more money.
the project grant applications and design and whatever. Like I just don't want to waste, I'd rather waste $8,000 than $34,000 because it's just not responsible to say, here's your money, go. I wouldn't do it personally. You know, I would say, well, it's going to take a year or whatever it's going to take. It's just how it works. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't make those rules. You know, I wish I did. Because then we just
It's
go.
already been over a year.
Yeah, I know.
So,
But I think-
can't Albion Township
What's that?
go after the land? You make your deal and then come back to us and say, this is what it costs, and we can,
No, that's not what my board approved.
they approve that we should pay for all the engineering before you even get the land.
No, they didn't have anything to do with engineering. The only question I asked them was, do you have an objection to owning the land that the Lake District does not want to own? And they said, yeah, we're not maintaining it, we're not constructing it, we'll own it. It's not on the tax base now, because Legion of Christ doesn't pay taxes. So, yeah, Albion's fine with owning it. We already own the landing. So, then we would own the parking lot. And I wish we had the engineer here, because they could probably explain step by step, cost by cost, how this would all take place.
Well, we know the end number, which is going to be the commitment, evidently.
Yeah.
And we know what the appraised value is, and we have a statement from a commission member that there should be a contingency that these monies are granted to the town of Albion under the condition that the land is purchased at appraised value. We need a contingency for an MOU or some sort of an agreement between the town of Albion and RKLD, what their responsibilities are today and 2 years from now.
Oh, yeah.
Or 3 years from now.
Yeah, otherwise I can say that's my landing and screw you.
Well, that has crossed my mind too, but
That's not the point, I mean,
Right.
That's not the objectives here.
Yeah.
that side of the lake doesn't have a workable landing, and you only got one on the other side of the lake, period.
Right.
You got one on the river and one on the upper river. Other than that, there are no more working landings.
So if I could make a suggestion, if we make, you're talking two motions. If you could maybe make the simplest one first, it wouldn't really matter, or you could stick them together because all the same contingencies are going to be attached to both. Although you might not want to wait on the writing the offer to purchase. That's a relatively low buck operation.
Well, and realistically, you know, writing the offer to purchase is more important right now, I think, to make sure they can get the land, because if they can't get the land,
Right.
this is going to change the whole thing. So, I mean, realistically, I think there should be a motion of, you know, willing to assist in writing the offer to purchase.
And then cover
And
the
that-
rest of it.
That's it.
Because we're not putting any money up front, we're just assisting them to get that offer to purchase, and once it's agreed upon, you know, then we can move forward from there on the other part of it. I mean, I think,
You have to include the grant applications though, because they're not going to buy it unless they get the grants.
On the
but I
offer to
think Dane
purchase.
County's,
Yeah,
Dane-
that'd have to be included in the offer to purchase, not.
Yeah, not
within
for
the
us,
motion here.
it's not for us, that's in their grant.
MSA is charging you to apply for those grants.
Correct.
So there's a cost there. You're going to write an offer to purchase through MSA or through
Well, wasn't
an
Darren
attorney?
wasn't Darren Marsh gonna write the grant for Dane County? And get you the money through him?
I think he was going to assist, but they have to have an engineer. First of all, they have to have an appraisal. That's why I had more copies of the appraisal done.
Yep.
The grant application has to have an appraisal with it.
Yep,
And but then you also have to have the signed offer to purchase.
yes.
So then MSA would have to write the application for the stewardship program, but Darren and his assistant, Chris, know these steps, and they got the forms.
Yeah, they have it all.
Actually, they've already given me some copies of the forms, but I can't tell you where I got them right now. That was a year ago.
So it sounds like we need to fund that beginning. So, and we don't have a number, so we would have to grab one from the sky or wait for one, or you just say
A number of,
$8,000
But if I understood what Bob's saying,
to exceed.
the Legions of Christ said they would take it at assessed value, right? Or not assessed at appraised value. So if we would agree to, pay for offer to purchase, or fund the money for the offer to purchase, which I don't know what that is, what's that, a couple $100, $400? Whatever, somebody, attorney or somebody with stipulated in there, you have to, the only way you would go forward is if the grant approved it also.
Two
what?
grants, right, Bob?
Whatever
two
grants
different-
it is.
Separate grants.
To fund the land
that
purchase.
price is contingent on getting both those grants.
Okay. And you're saying Dane County would write those grants, or you need MSA to write those grants?
MSA.
And yet we don't.
Dane County would assist them
Okay.
on their end of it, because half of that money is coming out of Dane County Park.
But they did not, unless you have it, there was no breakdown on.
Right, so you need money to,
So my
for the purchase through an attorney. You need the money for the two grant applications.
Right.
And you need earnest money if they're going to take that verbal deal that says we'll sell it to you for the appraised value.
But I
because
guess where I'm going with this,
tell you anything with those.
if you write an offer to purchase with tagged to 2 grants, you need to get this in front of Legion. And you don't really need the grant money at that point. You just need to have it worded in there, in that offer to purchase. This is a contingency that we get grant money,
I
two grants.
I think we need this offer to purchase in front of them,
And
and
that's it.
and then the next meeting
Yeah.
can be approved of how much money it's gonna cost to get the grants written and everything else. But
Right.
you need to get the offer to purchase and
front of them.
approved by them before anything else can happen. So right now, what it's gonna cost is,
I'll also say this, the manager out there doesn't have the last word. All of the priests are in New York.
Yeah, it's got to go to New York.
Yeah.
All the financial deal. But if they had verbally agreed over the telephone that they would take appraised value.
But it's still got, to
But
your
it's
point,
still-
it's still got to get to them.
yeah, so I mean,
It might take 3 months to get an answer back.
Right.
That they're gonna accept that.
so,
In the meantime, then you can find out what the attorney needs.
Yep.
And you can also find out what the cost, have MSA break this all down with step-by-step costs,
Okay, so all we're going to be into it is the cost of the offer to purchase.
offer the purchase.
And
the attorney,
maybe
whatever
some,
the attorney would charge to write it.
and possibly some earnest money?
But that could be several months from now, by the time they approve it.
Can you, will your town board put up the earnest money, Bob?
What's that?
Will Albion Township put up the earnest money? Or will Dane County put up the earnest money?
I
I don't know if Darren would or not.
Pardon?
You'd have to ask that question from my board. I don't know where they get the money.
Okay.
It's not in the budget.
Let me ask you this, is your board behind you on all this? This boat landing
So far.
and everything? They're 100% behind this? Okay.
So far.
Because there's no money out of pocket for the Albion Township? Or has there been any conversation at a board meeting on this?
I don't see that ever being an issue. I know our budget, I know, we have a park that we do maintain. We just went out and got donations for $50,000 for that. So they're all up for grant money programs, and part of that was a grant. They're not up to try and find money in our budget for recreational property. And I guess they feel that that's the Lake District's job.
Well, I think the Lake District's telling you that's not our job.
Yeah.
That's coming out loud and clear. That is not that's not why the Lake District was here or formed, is to, no. And that's why, I'd ask, if the discussion's been with your board, because I know I would have to have a discussion with my board if I was coming to a Lake District and asked this. And so I'm just trying to put myself in your position, like, what would I ask my town board to do? And I would, before I did even doing what you're doing, I would have to have my town board authorization to do this, I would think. I mean, I would feel comfortable as chairman anyway, I would have my board do it. So I'm asking you the same question, is your board or Albion Township willing to step up to the plate to these other costs? Because the Lake District, as Mark is pointing out, don't have the money. And I'm not going to, I personally don't think we need, unless the annual meeting, the residents want to spend more money. But to his point, I think the dam's more important. So I just don't see this happening,
Well,
to spend more money than the $100,000 that's been committed.
I guess in answer to your question, I would not ask my board to fund any of it, because I'm not taking my farmers' money and spending it for the people that live around the lake. That's why the people that live around the lake pay their fee to the Lake District. Now, you say that's not your responsibility and that, I beg to differ that, but I sure don't want to argue about it.
No, that's opinion's
I have
opinion.
property on the lake up north, and the Lake District up there develops boat landings, and they got little parks here and there, and trails, and they put money into a lot of stuff like that. I don't know ugly, but there's two decent landings there.
Very decent, but at the
Okay,
same,
we're,
off the point.
yeah, we're
Yes.
getting off the
We need
rail
to-
there.
Digressing.
Is there any motion? Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to offer our assistance in ready to offer to purchase through our attorney, and once they have any kind of a deal set, then we can move forward.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
all right. Discussion on the motion.
You want monetary value on that?
Well, we aren't committing to only helping writing the offer at this time
For the town of Albion.
for the town of Albion.
Because we don't know what we're spending our money on, because we don't have any land to,
Correct.
and then we can move forward and see what we're gonna do.
Correct.
If they will not sell the land, then maybe we can just go down there, make some improvements on the landing that's there. But if you make it too good, you can only park 6 boat trailers down there, so.
Correct.
So, you know, it'd be nice for the neighborhood, which as long as they pull their stuff out of there and,
Actually, you can't park any boat trailers down there because there's a town ordinance, no parking on town road.
so there you have it. And
Bill did the same thing, his boat landing.
Harry was going to start a shuttle service.
Yeah.
Just park in Fergie's yard.
Bolton Township did it also.
Any discussion on the motion?
You're gonna, Mike, you're gonna tag the grant money, there's 2 grants to the purchase, offer to purchase?
That's in the lawyer writing that. I mean, we're just making a motion to,
We're going to pay the attorney to
Write an offer.
yeah.
write it according to what Bob's contingencies
Yep.
are.
But remember what was discussed here, because there was a lot of excellent points in the direction we're going. So, and we will bring these up again in October.
And then to Carrie's point, are you setting a dollar amount on the offer to purchase, how much you're gonna allow attorney to cost?
For the appraised value.
No, to write it.
Oh, to write it.
Yeah, I mean,
Now, that's what it
Well,
was.
I can certainly ask what it'd take.
I wouldn't, $500, it wouldn't cost more
I'm
than
thinking
1,000.
500.
That much,
No,
$200 should be
Yeah.
plenty.
if it's 500, I'll write it.
Bob, the last one I had written was $400.
The,
That's why I'm asking this.
Al's sister-in-law can do it.
Yeah. That might be even more expensive. Any other questions? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carried.
One other thing I want to bring up, just so you know, that the appraisals are only good for a year.
And when is that one up?
I think we'd have to look at the date on it.
4 months ago?
I think it was January or February.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, there's no point in delaying this.
Oh, no.
You know, the attorney can have her staff do it, and it can be done in a day.
But they'll need a copy of it.
But
Do you have extra copies?
of the,
Appraisal.
maybe I do, but I was going to suggest that you and Jim get together and get get the list of contingencies you want on that offer.
Yes.
Is that doable?
Yep. And I can give the attorney a copy of the appraisal because that should go along with the offer.
Correct.
Like I said, I got 4 in my truck.
Okay.
And we can check that date. And I'll also want the attorney to mention that to the Legion of Christ so that they don't drag their heels on giving us an answer.
Okay.
Because that same appraisal is going to be needed for the grant application.
Well, it's up to you to decide how long that offer is good for.
Yeah, you have to set a date on how long it's good for, so.
Oh, well,
And we'll talk about that.
yeah, I'd want to know how long they need.
Okay.
With that, Jim, then RKLD's name is not on that.
Nope.
All right, public participation. Sue? Nothing? All right, comments from the commissioners? Yes, Mark?
I did get a letter from State Representative Don Berwink saying that the complaints to his office about the Lake District have all but subsided. So he said, good job. Our state representative, Don Berwick, sent me a letter that said that the complaints to his office about the Lake District have all but subsided, so he just wanted to say thanks and good job, everyone, so I thought that was nice of him to take the time, so worth mentioning, so.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, it is election time.
Yeah. Number 12,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep this, Bob.
Here, Bob.
Here.